welcome to Built to Adapt at Spring Platform 2017. My name is Ciara Byrne and I'm here with Jeff Kelly, talking to technology leaders from some of the world's largest and most iconic companies about the ways in which they're transforming software and as a result of that, their businesses. So today our guest is Greg Otto, who's the Executive Director of Cloud Services at Comcast. So you're very welcome, Greg.
Thanks for having me.
I think you've been working with Pivotal for around 3 years.
Yep, over 3 years.
So tell us a bit about the scale of your operation with PCF, because it's pretty impressive.
Yes, so we've been over 3 years in the journey, and we're in the neighborhood of about 20,000 application instances deployed on the platform. We have instances both in presence in public cloud as well as private cloud. And we manage all of that with just a small handful of people.
So I heard somewhere you've got like 1,500 developers, 210 million transactions a day, something like that.
Yes, those are the updated metrics we're probably around 350 million transactions a day.
Wow.
I think there's over 2,000 developers on the platform, and we have 1,000 developers that are collaborating every day on our Slack channel for the Cloud Foundry channel.
What's the size of your team that's actually supporting all of that?
About 6.
Okay, so it's pretty impressive you're managing to do all that with 6 people. And I think you chose high-value services to move to PCF from the beginning. So why did you decide to do that, and what were the pros and cons of that?
Sure. So our initial goal was really around improving resiliency, right? So Comcast is always looking to improve our customer service, and in our back office, we know that when our care tools aren't working, we're not able to service customers, there's a direct correlation to dissatisfied customers. So we wanted to improve the resiliency and time to market as well. And we moved over some of our back office core services that are in the middle of every customer interaction that we have, whether you're calling about our services, activating, billing. So those were some of the services that we chose to move over first, which was pretty ambitious in 2014 when we started.
So why did you choose these high-value services as opposed to playing it a bit safer and maybe doing something with fewer users or whatever?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we wanted to choose the services that we wanted to be able to move that had the highest return. So very frequently called services and services that represented a larger part of the customer experience lifecycle. So we moved over just a handful of services in the first year, and a lot of that had to do with our investment in people and transforming not just our applications, but around transforming our people, our mindset. So
well, actually, one of the things you told us before was that the culture at Comcast performance was predicated on perfection, which I like saying because of the onomatopoeia. So how did you move from that to a culture of experimentation and agility and constant change and make that safe for people to do?
As creating a safe environment was of paramount importance, and I'm lucky enough to be part of an organization that was really comfortable disrupting ourselves, and there was a big movement and shift towards DevOps and agile development and all the best practices in lots of other areas of the organization. And really it was around enabling our back office teams to be able to go through some of that same transformation. And we're still on that journey today, but that was really started prior to our journey. But in the back office area, we were we had some work to do. We had some structural changes that we needed to make. We had different reporting structures for development and operations and testing. So there was a lot of changes that brought people together so that we can kind of end-to-end own the responsibility of the products we were bringing to market.
And that has implications for people's roles within the organization. And that people transformation we hear is often as challenging, sometimes more challenging than the technology itself. Could you talk a little bit about that? What are some of the strategies you use to get people on board, help them understand that this is the way of the future? It's not necessarily, it's not a threat, but it's the new way of doing things. Because of course we know some people are resistant to change. How did you go about kind of spreading that message within Comcast?
Yeah, to me, there's no doubt that people aspects of change are the hardest problems to solve, and enabling people to feel safe that we're moving from waterfall methodologies to test-driven development and DevOps and Agile methodologies. A huge part. The technology, to me, I think, is really the easy part. Helping manage that people change and the human process to change is very, it's a lot of challenge. So when people saw us investing in training and education, we worked with Pivotal Labs and some other companies, ThoughtWorks and Accenture are big partners of ours that helped essentially train our development teams on how to do things differently. And then we created a migration factory that enabled us to sustain and keep that muscle memory, positive muscle memory. And now our development teams, they won't do things any other way, right? So they're just so used to the productivity improvements, the time to market improvements. They just won't go back. So it's, investing in people, you can't do enough of that in my opinion.
One of the things you said as well is that this completely changed the relationship between the operations team and the development teams. So I think you said that you spend something like 80% of your time now actually working with development teams as opposed to directly on the infrastructure.
Yeah, it's very counterintuitive, and with a small handful of people, you would think that we're running around managing the platform, and initially when we first built it, that was the case. I think we only had 2 or 3 people at the time, and now we've doubled. So that's exciting. And part of our transformation that we went through with the development teams was changing the way in which we develop and deliver platforms. And moving to continuous deployment and automation enables us to spend a little bit of time on managing the platform, and most of our time with the development teams and getting close to them, and their requests, their requirements are my backlog, and they help prioritize what it is that we do. So we're spending about 80% of our time that customer facing, development team facing, to understand what their requirements are, and we expand the platform capabilities based directly on that developer feedback.
Well, funnily enough, we're talking to somebody from Pivotal tomorrow about treating platform as a product, and it sounds like that's exactly what you have been doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely view it as it is a product. It needs to be managed as a product, and of course a business as well. And we measure our success by the happiness, the satisfaction of the development teams. And I often tell them, you are writing my review and the reviews of my team. And what do you want that story to say? What are the things that are interesting to you? And the things that really resonate are around the productivity. So not having ticket-based transactions to get work done. They can spend more time in code, creating great software, delivering awesome experiences to our customers. And that gets people really excited. And when they see the results and they can start to brag about some of that, then that attracts other development teams as well.
Well, you also said the relationship between development teams has changed because there's a lot. You have a Slack channel, I think, where people talk to each other specifically about the platform capabilities and so on.
Yeah. So one of the things, that's a great question. One of the things we wanted to do differently was we didn't want to have a ticket-based transaction interaction with our development teams. So we created a Slack channel for our Cloud Foundry product. We have other products as well. And what became really interesting is a couple of things. It really transformed how we interact and collaborate with our development teams, but it also changed how the development teams collaborate and interact with each other. So we have over 1,000 people in our Cloud Foundry Slack channel. And when there's a new person that's coming onto the platform and they're asking for help, many times there are other developers that are answering those questions before we can get to them. But what's really interesting, a couple of things that really took us by pleasant surprise, is they're also sharing ideas and best practices and design patterns and application capabilities that they've created. And they're sharing ideas and they're also sharing code. They're also sharing applications that they've created internally. And then some of the development teams took the approach to real-time communication and collaboration, And when you have multiple pizza-sized teams that are all working in alignment with a product, they created their own internal Slack channel. So instead of having Scrum of Scrum type meetings, and so they're all able to communicate and collaborate very, very quickly, and is very different than how they were communicating and collaborating before.
So you created these completely new channels of communication without meaning to, essentially.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we were hoping to get the community support, community adoption, and remove the ticket-based type of requests that we see in traditional environments, but that buzz, that community support has just been overwhelming, and to see them also innovate new ways of how they communicate and collaborate is pretty rewarding.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
In addition to communicating and collaborating internally, can you talk about their collaboration with the outside world, the open source communities? I think we talked briefly before we went on air about Comcast, obviously as a large enterprise you consume a lot of software, but now you're starting to actually create software and share that with the community and interact with open source contributors. Talk a little bit about how that has developed at Comcast.
Yeah, we're big believers in open source, and I think it was John Moore in 2010 had started to really contribute back to the open source community for Comcast. And now we actually have a practice in Comcast run by Nithya Ruff and Sheila Sabai, who's here at the conference to promote and share how Comcast is contributing back to the open source community. So we're not just consuming open source, but we're an active contributor to the Linux Foundation and Apache. We've contributed many projects back on how we distribute content. Comcast had created that capability and then open sourced that. And there's a number of other open source contributions that we've made as an organization. We believe pretty strongly in open source.
Yeah, and we'll expand on that a little. Why is that so important to Comcast? To not just use open source, but really to be that good community member and give back to the larger community.
Sure. Well, first, leveraging a community that's much larger than your own to make products better is a really important part of what we've been doing around Comcast and creating essentially a software-defined entertainment experience for our customers. So having that additional support in the community and people contributing back, giving us feedback, and having that open feedback loop with customers about our products is pretty powerful for us, and it helps us with our overall message around customer first and improving the customer experience and improving our products. And some of that includes making things open and getting that feedback.
And there are some cable companies, right, who are using your open source project, IPCDN, I think it is, and stuff like that?
Yes, our IPCDN is open sourced, and that's been contributed back. But our X1 platform, which is our video experience, that's been syndicated, and there are a number of cable companies that are using that to deliver and extend that experience to their own customers. So Shaw, Cox Cable, there's a few others, but
right. So it's really impacting your business model in a way. You're able to expand different channels, different products based on your ability to create software, iterate quickly, and get it out to market.
Yep, absolutely. Time to market's been really improving by leaps and bounds at Comcast. We're delivering new experiences faster than ever before. And I think that all translates to value for our customers, because we have a premium product and we're able to iterate on the features of those products very, very quickly.
And I think you've seen really good results on your resiliency as well, which was the first goal, right, was to improve resiliency.
Yes, the resiliency factor was huge for us. There was a big center of gravity. And over a 2-year period, we committed to the business to reduce impact minutes by 40%. And it was a little nerve-wracking, but we were able to far surpass that. So we improved over 80% improvement in our impact minutes for the services that we provide. And what's also really interesting is the frequency of occurrence was happening half as much, and our mean time to resolve was happening twice as quick. So all of that conspired to a much better customer experience and the experience of our care agents and folks that are in customers' homes, being able to have that, resiliency of the back office tools to be able to service our customers.
And we talked earlier about kind of what it looked like on the ground with developers adopting new methods and operations getting closer with developers. But I wonder, what was the relationship with management and making some of these transitions and tying the new approach to developing software and products to how their typical metrics and KPIs that they use to follow to manage the business. How was that relationship changed, or how did you manage that communication between the executive team and the way you guys were transforming how you built software?
Yeah, a lot of that had to do with some of the structural changes and bringing teams together and really doing DevOps and taking accountability for the end-to-end experience. So that was a big part of the transformation and relationship between management and the development teams and the operations teams and my team. So that was a huge part of it. It was a shared fate. We were all in it together. And the measures were really from the development teams and the application teams, not necessarily from infrastructure componentry metrics. Those aren't generally too helpful, but the business outcome metrics measured, and established by the business, and then the development teams around their productivity. So we improved the development team productivity anywhere from 50 to 60 to 75% in some cases. So they were pretty excited about that.
Right.
So that definitely helped the development teams, cuddle up to the idea after, they got comfortable and safe. That's really the main thing, is making people feel safe that you're in it together, and when they start to see some of the success and the rewards, you don't have to sell that.
So folks watching this, there's still time to join some of your Comcast sessions and maybe come by the booth?
Yeah, so we were probably one of the first enterprise customers, to adopt Pivotal Cloud Foundry and transform applications running at 350 million transactions a day. So we actually have a booth, and we have 5 different talks, and then I'll be speaking as part of a keynote panel on Thursday. But we have a number of talks, and our application teams are here to give some of those talks, so we encourage people to come to the booth. Talk to the development teams, don't take my word for it. Learn from them, right? It's all about learning from each other, and the team has awesome experiences to share. And then of course we're hiring, so Comcast, we're doing a lot around developing our own capabilities and software, and it's a great conference for us to be at, and we have our talent acquisition team on the ground, so to speak, at our booth. So we definitely encourage people to stop by, share, learn, and hopefully you can be part of the team.
Awesome.
Good luck with that, Greg, and thanks to everybody for watching.